DeAndre Mosley hated this part of the job, unpacking boxes and sorting merchandise beneath the flickering lights of the Walmart warehouse. The heavy crates, the endless lists, the dull repetition. But work was work, and when you were the only provider for your family, you couldn't afford to complain. Riverton had never been a place of promise. A small California town where everybody knew everybody, and gossip traveled faster than the wind. On the edge of town, a Walmart had just finished remodeling. New signs, fresh paint, and an expanded selection, all meant to draw in more shoppers. Mosley, help unload the new shipment of electronics. The warehouse manager, Terrence, shouted. Whole truckload came in today. DeAndre nodded, wiping sweat from his brow. At 34, he already felt worn down after a shift. What about the cameras, Terrence? When are they supposed to be working? DeAndre asked, glancing at the black domes bolted into the ceiling. They say by the end of the month. Right now, they're just props. Terrence shrugged. Management rushed the opening, so they threw those up to scare off thieves. Not hooked up yet. When his shift finally ended, DeAndre trudged toward his old Ford. Every muscle ached with fatigue, but his mind was on the evening ahead. It was his anniversary with Chantel. She had promised to cook something special. A smile touched his lips as he remembered how they'd first met right here in this store 5 years ago. She was a brand-new cashier then, and he'd been working in sporting goods. She'd called it love at first sight. Pulling into their driveway, DeAndre frowned. The small one-story home sat in silence, windows dark. Odd. Chantel usually beat him home. No smell of food, no clatter of pans, nothing. He checked the kitchen table. No note. No sign she'd even been there. He dialed her cell. Hello. Chantel's voice was breathless. Where are you? Thought you'd be home before me. Oh, I'm sorry, baby. They asked me to stay late. Inventory stuff. DeAndre frowned. On a Sunday? He knew for certain there wasn't any scheduled. Electronics, she replied quickly. New batch of TVs came in. I had to help check them. Electronics. That was where Rashad worked. Young, tall, perfect smile. DeAndre had seen women customers linger around him, but he'd never thought much of it until now. You worked with Rashad? A pause. Barely there, but DeAndre caught it. Yeah, him and a couple others. Listen, I'll be home soon. Picked up some wine. She hung up. DeAndre sank into a chair, unease tightening in his gut. His instincts, ones he used to ignore, now screamed something wasn't right. Half an hour later, Chantel walked in, cheeks flushed, hair a little too tousled. She carried a bag with wine, kissing him on the cheek before heading to the kitchen. Sorry for the delay. I'll whip something up quick. DeAndre studied her. The lipstick she hadn't worn that morning, a new blouse under her work vest, and that scent, cologne, definitely not his. How was work? He asked lightly. Same old. Customers, lines, nothing special. She chopped vegetables a bit too hard, eyes fixed on the board. And you? Nothing much. Except Terrence told me the cameras aren't working yet. Just for show. Her knife still for a heartbeat before continuing. Really? Didn't know that. Dinner passed in a strained silence. Chantel tried to talk about TV shows and weekend plans, but DeAndre only answered in clipped words, watching her closely. Something about his wife was different, and he could feel it. The next morning, DeAndre showed up at work early, from his station in electronics. He had a good view of the registers where Chantel worked. At 10, Rashad strolled in tall and lean, stylish glasses, neat beard. 26 years old, fresh from Atlanta. DeAndre only knew what Coworker said about him. He watched Rashad nod at Chantel, watched her return it. Not with a polite workplace smile, but with a softness in her eyes that made DeAndre's stomach twist. Mosley, you working or daydreaming? Terrence barked, snapping him back. But all day, DeAndre's eyes kept drifting toward Chantel. During lunch, he spotted her and Rashad at the same break room table. They didn't sit too close, didn't touch, but the way they leaned in, the way they looked at each other, it told him enough. That night, he finally asked, You talk to Rashad much? Chantel froze at the sink. Who? Don't play dumb. the new guy in electronics. Oh, him? She shrugged, scrubbing hard at the plate. Just normal work talk. Why? Just notice y'all chat a lot. He's new, DeAndre. Everybody's helping him out. What's this, an interrogation? Not an interrogation. Just asking. Her tone, her refusal to meet his eyes, it all screamed otherwise. Maybe not an affair yet, but something was brewing. The next few days were torture. Chantel stayed late more often. She fussed with her appearance. New hairstyles, perfume she'd once saved for special nights, and her phone. It was suddenly locked, always in her hand or under her pillow at night. Thursday evening, while she showered, DeAndre grabbed it. Locked. He tried birthdays, anniversaries. Nothing. Then he remembered a code he'd once glimpsed, 19226. Rashad's birthday. He punched it in. The phone unlocked. His hands trembled as he scrolled. Messages with Rashad had been wiped, but the settings showed they'd exchanged texts just yesterday. Social media, email, clean. Then he opened her notes app. Only one message. Backroom. 10 p.m. Friday. The shower shut off. Heart hammering. DeAndre slipped the phone back in place. For the next 2 days, he barely functioned. At work, he made mistakes. At home, his words came clipped and empty. Chantel acted sweet, cooking his favorite meals, asking about his day. But now, everything about her felt like a performance. Friday morning, Chantel announced she had the late shift. Don't wait up for dinner, she said casually. I got a late one, too, DeAndre lied. He had already arranged to leave early. That evening, he pretended to head home, but parked at the far end of the Walmart lot with a sandwich and coffee, watching the service entrance. The minutes crawled by. At 9:30, the doors locked to customers. Employees trickled out, some waving to him without noticing the dark Ford hidden in the corner. DeAndre never saw Chantel among the employees leaving, nor did he see Rashad. That was all the confirmation he needed. At 9:55, he stepped out his car. The night air was cool, and he pulled on a jacket, sliding his phone, with the camera app already open, into his pocket. He approached the service entrance. By that hour, it should have been locked, but the door gave way with ease. Someone had left it open. Inside, only the dim emergency lights flickered, stretching shadows across the walls. DeAndre knew the layout well. To reach the back room, he had to pass through the warehouse. Each step was careful, hushed, his thoughts racing ahead. What he might catch, what proof he could secure, what he would do with it. The echo of his breathing and the pounding in his chest were the only sounds. Never had the store felt so enormous, so hollow. The back room sat in the farthest corner, a small, cramped space where tools and paperwork were kept, tight, but big enough for two. DeAndre slowed his pace as he neared the door. Silence. No voices. No movement. Maybe he was wrong. Maybe the note in her phone had meant something else. Then came laughter. A woman's laugh. Chantel's laugh. Followed by a man's voice, low and unmistakable, Rashad. DeAndre's hand closed around his phone. He inched forward, ready to hit record. He needed proof. Once he had it, he would decide what to do next. But doubt gnawed at him, and that night, he didn't open the door. He froze. He couldn't. Instead, he carried the sound of their voices home, where it replayed in his mind endlessly. A week passed in torment. He hadn't confronted her that night, hadn't stormed in, but the suspicions grew heavier each day. Monday morning, while Chantel showered, he reached for her phone again. The password had been changed. Every failed attempt only deepened his certainty. She had something to hide. At work, he studied them carefully. Chantel and Rashad avoided speaking openly, but when they thought no one was looking, their eyes lingered too long. One afternoon, Rashad brushed Chantel's hand as he handed her some paperwork. She held on just a beat too long. Wednesday morning, arranging appliances, DeAndre overheard voices from the next aisle. Chantel, Rashad, we need to be more careful, Chantel whispered. He suspects something. Don't worry, Rashad replied smoothly. We can always say it was about work. That's not the point. He's watching me. He checks my phone when he thinks I'm not looking. You change your password? Yeah, but that only made him more suspicious. A pause. Then Rashad, quieter. Maybe we should stop, at least for a while. I can't. Chantel's voice softened, tender in a way DeAndre hadn't heard directed at him in years. You know how I feel. DeAndre's fist clenched, nails cutting into his palms. So it was true. Not just flirting, not just imagination. His wife was with this boy. That evening, the house felt charged with tension. Chantel acted sweet, fixing his favorite meal, playing his favorite show, but he barely touched his food. Something happened at work? She asked when he ignored her third question. Nothing much. He looked at her sharply. What about you? How was your day? The usual. Crowds, long lines. I'm tired. Did you talk to Rashad? Her eyes flickered wide for just a second. Then she shrugged, briefly. Why? Just asking. DeAndre pushed his fork aside. Appetite gone. Funny, though. You two barely speak when I'm around. But the second I step away, you whisper, what's that about? Chantel's brows knit. I talk to all my coworkers the same way. That's a lie. He rose from the table. I heard you today. Behind the shelving. I know what you said. Her face drained of color. Were you following me? Did I have to? His voice rose. I had to spy on my own wife. DeAndre, you got all wrong. Do I? He stepped closer. Then explain. Explain the new password, the late nights, the secret talks. Explain it. It's nothing. Just conversation. Chantel shot up from her chair, anger twisting her face. God, you're so controlling. I can't even talk to a coworker without you accusing me. Friendly? DeAndre gave a bitter laugh. Is that what you call it? I heard enough to know better. Don't lie to me again. Enough. She grabbed her sweater. I'm not doing this while you're in this state. You're going to him? He shouted as she stormed out. But the slamming door was her only answer. 2 hours later, she returned. No words passed between them. She went to the bedroom. He took the couch. He didn't sleep, replaying their argument and every detail he'd ignored. For 2 days, silence smothered the house. At work, DeAndre avoided electronics, afraid of what he might do if he saw Rashad. Chantel avoided him, too, swapping shifts to stay clear. By Friday, Terrence called him into maintenance. Mosley, come here. Alex is setting up the cameras. Might as well check your section, too. In the office, a young tech in glasses filled with wires. What area you work in? Warehouse, appliances mostly. DeAndre said, eyeing the monitors. So, the camera's finally about to work? Not right away. Alex shook his head. Big system. Too many points. We'll start with registers and entrances, then add the rest. Whole thing won't be up for 2 weeks at least. What about the ones already up? They recording? Nope. Just for show. Alex smirked. Half those domes don't even have cameras inside. Only the front entrance and registers are real, but they're not hooked to the server yet. Management rushed the opening, so same old story. That fact burned itself into DeAndre's mind. No cameras, no recordings, no one watching. Later, during lunch, he found Chantel in the break room, staring at her phone. He sat across from her. She flinched. We need to talk, he said quietly. Not here. Her eyes darted to the coworkers nearby. Rumors of their fights had spread fast. Then where? At home. You don't want to talk there. I need time to think, she muttered. What's there to think about? He leaned closer. Either you stop seeing him, or... Or what? She snapped. What will you do? DeAndre had no answer. His silence was broken only by the creak of the door as Rashad entered. He froze at the sight of them, then busied himself at the coffee machine, avoiding their table. I see your friend is here, DeAndre hissed. Don't let me stop your little chats. He stood and walked out, a dark, boiling fury rising inside. That evening, when he returned home, Chantel was packing a bag. Where are you going? He asked from the doorway. To my sister's. We both need space to think. You're going to him, he said flatly. Think what you want. She zipped her bag. I'll be back Sunday. Maybe. As she tried to brush past him, DeAndre grabbed her arm. Chantel, don't do this. Let go. She yanked free. You don't owe me. I'm your husband. So what? That doesn't mean you control me. She took a step back. That's exactly why Chantel stopped cold. Why what? Tell me. A vein pulsed at DeAndre's temple. Is that why you found someone else? Is that why you're sleeping with this? Stop it. Chantel clamped her hands over her ears. I'm not listening to this. She snatched her bag and bolted. DeAndre heard the slam of the front door, the rev of her engine, the tires crunching against gravel, and then silence. The weekend dragged in a blur. He barely ate. Sleep never came. Every time he closed his eyes, images of Chantel and Rashad filled his mind, laughing together, touching, kissing, lying tangled in bed. Each vision pierced like a blade. On Monday, he arrived at work earlier than usual. Chantel was supposed to be on the morning shift, and he wanted to catch her before the store opened, but she wasn't there. A cashier told him Chantel had traded shifts. She wouldn't be in until evening. The hours crawled. He worked like a machine, consumed by one thought, their marriage. He decided he would give her one last chance. If Chantel promised to end the affair, he'd forgive her. He'd forget. They could start again. Around 6 p.m., he spotted her at the checkout counter. She looked pale but composed. DeAndre started toward her, but before he could reach her, Rashad appeared. The two exchanged quiet words. Rashad slipped her a folded note before walking off. DeAndre waited. When Chantel went on break, he followed her into the break room. A few coworkers were there. She clearly hadn't expected to see him. We need to talk, he said firmly. Not now. She shook her head. Then you've been dodging me. She exhaled sharply. After work. Come home at 11 and we'll talk then. DeAndre nodded, leaving without another word. His shift ended at 8, giving him time to prepare. But the note gnawed at him. What had Rashad pass her? He doubled back. Chantel's register was unattended. Her purse left on the counter. Glancing around, he opened it quickly. Inside was the note. Back room. 10:30. Need to decide what to do next. R. DeAndre returned the slip exactly as he found it. 10:30. After closing. In that same back room. His mind spun. Decide what? Were they planning to run away together? Was Chantel preparing to leave him? At 8 p.m., he clocked out but didn't go home. He sat in his car, watching the darkened store, time dragging unbearably slow. 9, 10. At 10:20, he got out, heading toward the service entrance. The door was unlocked. They were already inside. The emergency lights cast dim shadows as he slipped through the warehouse, every step thundering in his ears. His breath seemed deafening in the empty store. He knew the way to the back room by heart. Voices carried through the silence. Chantel's voice, trembling. I can't do this anymore. He knows. He's watching me. We can leave, Rashad said, calm, certain. I've got money. We'll start fresh. What about DeAndre? We've been married 5 years. You're not happy with him. You told me yourself. I know, but it's complicated. It's up to you, Rashad pressed. But I love you, Chantel. I want to be with you. I love you, too. The words shattered DeAndre like glass. 5 years of marriage. And she gave that to another man. Before he knew it, his hand was on the doorknob. He flung it open. They froze in each other's arms. Chantel gasped. Rashad stepped back, startled. DeAndre, what are you doing here? I thought I'd check on your little friendly chats. His voice dripped with venom. Now I see the truth. Love. A new life. Like something out of a dime store novel. Listen, man, Rashad said carefully, stepping forward. We didn't want you to find out this way. Don't call me man. DeAndre's voice roared. You're in my house, in my life, in my bed. You're sleeping with my wife. DeAndre, calm down. Chantel raised her hands in a placating gesture. Let's talk this out like adults. Adults? DeAndre laughed bitterly. Adults don't sneak around in storerooms. Adults don't lie to their husbands. His eyes flicked to the shelf. Tools lined it. His hand moved on its own, closing around the cold steel of the hammer. DeAndre, no, Chantel's voice quavered. Put it down. You were supposed to be mine, he whispered. Only mine. Hey, chill out, Rashad said, moving to shield Chantel. We can talk this through. But DeAndre's vision was red. He swung. The hammer cracked into Rashad's temple. The younger man collapsed soundlessly. Chantel screamed, rushing to Rashad's side. He's not breathing. My God, you killed him. Her phone was already in her hand when DeAndre grabbed her arm. Don't, Chantel. Let me go. You're insane. I'm calling the police. The second blow landed as true as the first. Chantel's body fell beside Rashad's, eyes frozen in terror. DeAndre stood over them, chest heaving, hammer dripping. The way what he'd done sank in. 2 lives ended, but there were no cameras, no witnesses. No one had seen him enter. He could fix this. Methodically, he wiped the hammer and placed it in Rashad's limp hand. Stage, a fight, a lover's quarrel. Rashad killed Chantel, then himself. A perfect story. He closed the door quietly behind him, stepping out into the dark warehouse. Now, he only had to wait for the discovery, play the grieving husband. No one would ever know. At 5:30 a.m., Brenda Holloway, the head janitor, unlocked the service door. She wheeled in her cleaning cart, humming softly about the grandchildren coming to visit that weekend. As she neared the back room, she noticed a dark puddle seeping under the door. Pipes leaking again, she muttered, fumbled with her keys. Plumbers never fix nothing right. She opened the door and froze. Her scream tore through the silence. 2 bodies sprawled on the floor, bathed in blood. A hammer clutched in the man's hand. With shaking fingers, Brenda dialed 911. McFarland police, a calm dispatcher answered. Help, Brenda rasped. At Walmart murder. 2 bodies. Within 20 minutes, the lot was swarming with police cars. Employees gathered outside, whispering and staring as yellow tape sealed the entrance. Detective Amari Jackson arrived at 6:15, tall and sharp-eyed, with her seasoned partner Sergeant Otis Brooks at her side. What do we have? Amari asked the patrol officer. A double homicide, woman and a man, found in the back room, bodies still warm. Looks like the guy killed her and then himself. IDs? Yes, ma'am. Female, Chantel Mosley, cashier, early 30s. Male, Rashad Taylor, electronics clerk, 26. Amari and Otis exchanged glances. Cameras? Otis asked. Checked already, the officer said. Turns out none of them were hooked up. Cameras are there, but no recordings. How convenient, Amari muttered. They entered the warehouse. Evidence techs already working. The bodies were about to be moved when Amari halted them. Otis tugged on gloves and pried the hammer from Rashad's hand. He frowned. Strange, he said. The grip's all wrong. If he'd killed her and then himself, his fingers should have relaxed after death. Plus, Amari added, examining the bruise on Chantel's temple. The strikes came from the same side. A right-handed person doesn't swing that way if they're aiming at themselves. Staged, Otis suggested. Looks that way. Amari nodded. First step, we need to locate the husband. DeAndre Mosley was at home when the knock came. He hadn't slept, lying awake all night replaying the events in his head, convincing himself he'd made the right choices, that nobody would connect the dots. But when he opened the door and saw the detectives, his heart jumped. Outwardly, though, he kept calm. Mr. Mosley? Amari asked, showing her badge. Detective Amari Douglas, McFarland PD. This is Sergeant Otis Green. Mind if we come in? We need a word. Of course. DeAndre stepped back to let them in. Something wrong. They sat in the living room. Amari noted his red eyes, rumpled clothes, signs of a restless night. But she didn't press, not yet. Mr. Mosley, I'm afraid we've got some tragic news, she began, studying him carefully. Your wife, Chantel Mosley, was found dead this morning at Walmart. DeAndre froze, then slumped against the couch, covering his face with both hands. What? No. How? What happened? We're still piecing it together, Otis answered evenly. But Chantel wasn't alone. A co-worker, Rashad Taylor, was found with her. He's gone too. DeAndre lifted his head, his eyes a storm of shock and something else. Anger, fear, maybe both. Rashad? I don't understand. Why would they even be together? We were hoping you could help us figure that out, Amari said. When did you last see your wife? Yesterday. She had the evening shift, DeAndre said slowly, choosing each word. We agreed to meet back here around 11 to talk. We've been having issues. What kind of issues? Otis asked, scribbling notes. DeAndre lowered his gaze. I thought she was seeing someone. A co-worker, Rashad. She didn't come home last night? Amari clarified. He shook his head. I assumed she stayed at her sister's. God, I can't believe this. His voice trembled now, the tears coming. I loved her. Where were you last night, Mr. Mosley? Amari pressed. At home. Waiting. My shift ended at 8. I came straight back. Anyone confirm that? No. I was alone. He looked up sharply. You don't think I? We're considering every possibility. Amari cut in, voice flat. Tell us more about your suspicions regarding your wife. DeAndre spoke of the past weeks. Changed passwords, late nights, the note he'd found, the fights, the weekend away. Then her sudden decision that they needed to talk. His tears this time felt less rehearsed. The detectives wrapped up with a few more questions before Amari said, We'll need you to come down to the station and formally identify your wife's body. Yeah, all right. Just give me a minute to freshen up. As they left, Otis asked quietly, What's your read? Too smooth? Amari muttered. He suspected an affair. They argued. And now she's dead along with the alleged lover? It fits too neatly. If you want to get rid of Rashad, why kill Chantel too? Otis countered. Passion, jealousy, rage. Amari shrugged. And did you see his eyes when we mentioned Rashad? Something was off. But for now, it's just suspicion. We need evidence. We'll find it, Amari said firmly. Everybody slipped somewhere. At the station, DeAndre identified Chantel's body, his face contorted with grief as he steadied himself on the wall. Perfect act for a grieving husband, Amari thought. Maybe too perfect. Back at Walmart, evidence collection dragged on. Anything, Amari asked the CSI. Blood from both victims. Prints, mostly Rashad's, some Chantel's. Only Rashad's and a hammer, but the placement's strange, like it was put in his hand after death. Minimal struggle? Barely any. They didn't see it coming. Over the next hours, Amari and Otis interviewed employees. Tension between DeAndre and Chantel? Confirmed. Rashad and Chantel talking often? Confirmed. But nothing beyond that. DeAndre left at 8, a cashier recalled. I saw him walk out. And after that? Amari asked. No, didn't see him again. The cameras became their next lead. Internal ones? Broken. But the external lot cameras had just gone live the day before. Reviewing the footage, a technician found it. At 10:43 p.m., a hooded figure slipped out the service door. Build? Amari asked. 6 foot, solid frame. Like Mosley. They exchanged a glance. Suspicion deepened. Back at DeAndre's home, they tried again. Mr. Mosley, you said your shift ended at 8 and you went straight home? Amari asked. Yes, I was home the whole night. And you didn't return to the store later? A pause. Barely noticeable. No, of course not. Why would I? Just clarifying, Amari said evenly, but our cameras caught someone leaving the service exit at 10:43. Same build as you. It wasn't me, DeAndre said sharply. I was home. Mind showing us the shoes you wore yesterday? Otis asked suddenly. Why? Footprints. Just to rule things out. DeAndre, tense but recovered. Fine. He disappeared into the hallway and returned with his work boots. Here, but I told you I wasn't there. Otis inspected them before passing them to Amari. She studied the soles. Mr. Mosley, these are what looks like blood stains. DeAndre paled. That's impossible. I wasn't there. We'll send them to forensics, Amari said, slipping them into an evidence bag. If it's the victim's blood, we'll need a serious talk. I didn't kill them. DeAndre erupted, his voice breaking. I love Chantel. Yes, I was angry, but I would never... No one's accusing you yet, Mr. Mosley. Otis replied calmly. We're just collecting facts. DeAndre sank back onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. This has to be some kind of mistake, he muttered. I couldn't. There's something else, Amari said evenly. On your wife's phone, the last calls and messages were deleted. Someone took care to erase her conversations with Rashad, but our tech team recovered fragments. The final call she made before she died was to you, Mr. Mosley, at 10:15. It was a bluff. Chantel's phone was still being analyzed, but Amari wanted to see his reaction. DeAndre's head shot up, his eyes wide. What? I don't remember a call like that. That's strange, considering it lasted nearly 5 minutes. Amari leaned forward. What were you and Chantel discussing, Mr. Mosley? DeAndre's body trembled, sweat forming along his brow. I don't remember. Detective. Otis cut in, his voice steady. Maybe Mr. Mosley needs a lawyer. I didn't kill them. DeAndre suddenly shouted, springing to his feet. It wasn't me. I didn't go back to the store. Then explain the blood on your shoes, Amari said calmly. Explain the call. Explain why a man with your build was seen leaving the crime scene when you claim you were home. DeAndre began pacing jerky, desperate movements. I don't know. Maybe it's a coincidence. Maybe. DeAndre. Amari softened her tone. We know you were angry. You believed your wife was betraying you. You followed her. You saw them together. For anyone, that would have been too much. Stop. DeAndre clutched his head. I don't want to hear this. If you tell us the truth, the court might take your emotional state into account. Amari pressed. Rage and jealousy can be mitigating circumstances. DeAndre froze, his breathing heavy, eyes darting like a trapped animal. Finally, his voice cracked into a whisper. I didn't mean to. I just wanted to talk. Otis gave a small nod. Then tell us what happened. DeAndre collapsed back onto the couch, as if his strength had been drained. I found a note, he said, his voice hollow. The back room. 10:30. I knew they'd be there. I just wanted to make her listen. He swallowed hard before continuing. When I arrived, they were together, hugging. She told him she loved him, said they'd leave, start over. I just wanted to talk. But Rashad looked at me like I was nothing. He talked down to me. And then the hammer was right there on the shelf. I don't remember picking it up. I don't remember swinging. I just remember Chantel screaming. His voice broke. She grabbed a phone, said I was crazy, said she'd call the cops. And then he covered his face, shoulders shaking. I didn't mean to kill her. I swear I didn't. I loved her. Even after everything, I loved her. Amari and Otis exchanged a long, silent glance. The confession hung heavy in the air. The time for questioning was over. DeAndre Mosley, Amari said formally, her voice sharp now. You are under arrest for the murders of Chantel Mosley and Rashad Taylor. As DeAndre was let out in handcuffs, neighbors gathered on the sidewalks. Some lifted phones to record, others whispered prayers, while a few just shook their heads in disbelief. The quiet town of McFarland had become the backdrop of a tragedy that would be retold for years. Behind the wheel of the cruiser, Amari exhaled slowly while Otis sat beside her. DeAndre, broken and silent, slumped in the back seat. Why'd you suspect him from the start? Otis asked. Because it was too clean, Amari replied. A double suicide? Too perfect. Real life doesn't work like that. The car rolled to McFarland's hush streets. Another case closed. Another family destroyed. Another story of love twisted into hate, and jealousy that bled into murder. If you're drawn to stories like this, where love, betrayal, and obsession collide, be sure to subscribe. You won't want to miss what comes next. This is Ruthless Realities. Until next time.